Welcome back to Fusty Stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get ready for another story you won't forget. Let's dive back to the story. Amelia Dawson Carter arrived alone at the gala hosted inside her own penthouse, dressed in plain clothes that made her blend with the staff rather than the elite crowd. She wanted to see the true nature of the people her billionaire husband, Edward Carter, often entertained. Without his presence or her usual elegant appearance, she became invisible, just another face passing through the glamorous decor. Guests brushed past her, never imagining she owned everything around them. Amelia watched the shallow conversations, the fake charms, the competitive smiles, realizing just how quickly people judge based on appearance. Charlotte Kensington spotted her first and immediately assumed Amelia was hired help. Her friends, Sophie and Victoria, followed her lead, laughing as they mocked Amelia's simple outfit. Without hesitation, Charlotte ordered her to head to the kitchen and assist the staff. Amelia, choosing silence over confrontation, obeyed. She wanted to observe their arrogance clearly. Walking through the busy kitchen, the event manager also mistook her for staff and placed her at the sink. Amelia rolled up her sleeves and began washing dishes, unnoticed and unvalued, yet painfully aware of every insult. Word spread among a few guests that a new cleaner was struggling with dishes, and some even came by to laugh or take secret photos. Amelia kept her dignity, saying nothing, her hands turning red from the hot water. She reminded herself why she came like this, to see their true colors, not their filtered personas. The more she listened to their cruelty, the clearer their nature became. She realized how easily people discarded kindness when they believed someone lacked status. Yet she remained steady, refusing to give them the reaction they craved. Everything shifted when Edward Carter arrived unexpectedly, stepping into the kitchen to find his wife standing at the sink with trembling hands and flushed skin. His calm expression collapsed into cold fury. The staff froze at the sudden change in atmosphere. Everyone knew Edward was powerful, but no one had ever seen him angry. Charlotte and her friends followed behind him, laughing, until they saw the way he touched Amelia's shoulder gently, protectively, and called her my wife. Silence crashed over the room like thunder. Every person realized the catastrophic mistake they had made. Edward ordered the music stopped, and the entire gala shut down immediately. In front of everyone, he confronted Charlotte, Sophie, Victoria, and every guest who had mocked or silently watched Amelia being humiliated. His voice was icy as he announced that all of them were permanently removed from his business network, investment teams, and future social events. He demanded they leave his home at once. Panic erupted. Some protested, others cried, but Edward remained unmoved. His security escorted them out, and their glamorous night turned into a devastating downfall none had anticipated. Within 48 hours, the scandal went viral. Photos taken by the socialites became evidence of their own cruelty, exposing them nationwide. Charlotte Kensington's reputation collapsed instantly. She was blacklisted from elite circles and abandoned by sponsors, investors, and even friends. Sophie and Victoria faced similar consequences, drowning in public shame. People condemned them for humiliating a woman they thought was powerless. Meanwhile, Amelia said nothing publicly. Her silence became the loudest message of all, admired by millions who saw dignity triumph over arrogance. In the following weeks, Amelia and Edward decided to rebuild their social environment completely. Instead of another glittering event filled with pretentious guests, they hosted a small, intimate gathering in their penthouse, inviting community leaders, artists, charity founders, and people who valued humanity over wealth. The atmosphere was warm and genuine, filled with real conversations and sincere laughter. For the first time, Amelia felt surrounded by people who saw her heart before her status. She and Edward realized that true power wasn't in wealth or appearances, but in choosing the right people to stand beside. Their marriage grew even stronger after the incident. Edward admired Amelia's restraint and courage, and she appreciated his fierce loyalty. Together, they rebuilt their circle based on kindness, respect, and genuine character. And whenever Amelia looked at the now infamous kitchen sink in her penthouse, she smiled, not in pain, but in victory. She had walked into a room as a nobody and walked out revealing everybody else's truth. And in the end, she and Edward proved that dignity, even in silence, is more powerful than any social status ever could be. The scandal spread faster than anyone expected. News outlets dissected every detail, with reporters emphasizing how easily the elite had mocked a woman they believed was powerless. Amelia watched the coverage quietly, while Edward handled an overwhelming wave of business inquiries. Investors praised the stance, calling it a refreshing show of integrity. Through it all, Amelia stayed composed. She had never wanted attention, nor revenge, only truth. But now the world saw her as the woman who exposed the shallow cruelty of the upper class without saying a single word. That alone elevated her to a new level of respect. Charlotte, Sophie, and Victoria tried to release public statements, but they were dismissed as insincere excuses. Their networks abandoned them, friends avoided them, and businesses distanced themselves. Charlotte attempted to blame the event organizers, but evidence showed her leading the humiliation. Sophie faced consequences from her modeling contracts, and Victoria's family business lost major partnerships. The trio, once feared and admired, became symbols of arrogance. Meanwhile, Amelia focused on healing her sore hands and moving on with grace, refusing to let the bitterness of others stain her gentle heart. Life slowly returned to normal inside the penthouse, though it felt different, quieter, more peaceful, and strangely grounded. Edward made sure Amelia rested, often bringing her tea and sitting beside her in silence while she read or painted. The bond between them softened even more, strengthened by what they had endured together. Amelia appreciated his presence deeply. He had defended her publicly with unwavering loyalty. She knew his fury came from love, not pride. To her, that was worth more than all the wealth in their world. As time passed, Amelia and Edward began planning how to transform the penthouse into a space that welcomed real connection. They removed the pretentious decorations chosen by Charlotte's old circle and replaced them with warm lights, bookshelves, and art created by young local talent. Amelia insisted that their home should never again be a stage for shallow people. She wanted it to become a place where value was measured in character, not money. Edward supported every idea she suggested, happy to rebuild something new, something honest. They later met with a few trustworthy friends and charity partners who had reached out after hearing what happened. These people genuinely cared, offering comfort instead of gossip. Amelia noticed how different they felt compared to the old crowd, kinder, thoughtful, and sincere. She realized that not everyone in the elite world was corrupted by vanity. Some were simply overshadowed by louder, crueler voices. With Edward's help, she began creating a new list of collaborators and guests who shared their values. To seal this new beginning, Amelia organized a small, intimate dinner at home. Instead of a glamorous event, it was a warm gathering filled with laughter, homemade dishes, and heartfelt conversations. Guests shared stories of community work, personal challenges, and life outside the spotlight. Amelia sat with them, listening closely and learning. For the first time, she saw potential in building a circle based not on status, but on authenticity. She realized she had created a space where her heart felt safe. Despite the peace settling into her life, the world outside continued to buzz about the scandal. Documentaries were proposed, podcasts wanted interviews, and bloggers analyzed her silence as a form of power. Amelia politely declined all invitations. She didn't want to capitalize on humiliation. All she wanted was to live quietly with Edward, surrounded by people who appreciated substance over image. Edward admired her refusal to seek attention, calling it her greatest strength. Meanwhile, Charlotte's life continued spiraling downward. She attempted to sue a few tabloids for defamation, but her own behavior was recorded too clearly. Her fall from grace became an ongoing cautionary tale, one replayed constantly in the world she once dominated. Sophie and Victoria attempted to rebuild their image through charity appearances, but people saw through performance. Amelia never wished them harm. She simply refused to engage. She believed they could find healing only when they learned humility on their own. One evening, Edward asked Amelia what she truly wanted going forward. She responded with surprising clarity. She wanted their influence to create value for others, not attract shallow admiration. Amelia proposed opening their home occasionally to youth leaders, innovators, and artists who lacked opportunities. Edward agreed instantly, proud of her vision. The penthouse, once a playground for privilege, was becoming a sanctuary for growth. Together, they worked on creating a mentorship program funded by Edward's company, with Amelia serving as the leading organizer. Her quiet nature made participants feel comfortable, and her story inspired them. She didn't have to boast about her status. Her presence alone carried dignity. This new role brought Amelia fulfillment she never expected, especially after such a painful experience. She discovered her voice not in loudness, but in impact. A few months later, Amelia and Edward hosted their first official community gathering. The room was filled with young minds, soft music, and artwork displayed across the living room walls. Instead of judgment, there was curiosity. Instead of arrogance, there was gratitude. Amelia walked around greeting guests warmly, offering encouragement and listening to their dreams. Edward watched her with admiration, realizing she was far more powerful than anyone understood. Not because she owned wealth, but because she could turn a painful moment into something transformative. Their guests left that evening inspired, grateful, and eager to return. Amelia felt at peace for the first time since the gala. She looked around the penthouse and realized it finally reflected who she truly was. Not a figure for elite display, but a woman of depth and quiet purpose. Edward embraced her, whispering that she had changed more lives than she'd ever know. She smiled softly, knowing he meant every word. In time, the scandal faded, replaced by stories of Amelia's community work and Edward's ethical leadership. Their names became associated not with wealth, but with integrity. People admired how Amelia had handled humiliation with grace and how Edward had defended her without hesitation. Their relationship, once private and understated, became a quiet example of loyalty in a world obsessed with status. And though Amelia never wished to relive that awful night, she recognized its purpose. It had revealed true characters, both the cruel and the kind. It had strengthened her marriage, reshaped her environment, and redirected her influence toward meaningful change. What was meant to break her instead elevated her, and she carried that lesson into every part of her new world with calm confidence. On a warm evening months later, Amelia stood by the window of the penthouse, watching the city lights shimmer below. Edward joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. They didn't need words. Their silence was understanding. Everything had changed for the better. Their home no longer echoed with shallow laughter. It now held warmth, purpose, and peace. Amelia knew she would never forget the night she washed dishes in her own home. But she would also never forget how she rose above it, how Edward stood with her, and how that painful moment transformed everything. Their journey forward will be shaped by kindness and truth, not status or fear. And in that quiet moment, wrapped in Edward's embrace, Amelia Dawson Carter felt deeply, quietly victorious. That's all for today. Like, subscribe, and see you in the next episode. Stay tuned.